Tobias Redmond had lived alone for 8 years on his remote ranch after the tragic death of his wife and daughter. He avoided other people and spoke only to the wind and his horses. To Tobias, the outside world had been dead for a long time. That night, a violent storm swept through the mountains. Rain slammed against the windows like gunfire, and the wind screamed in the darkness. Tobias was sitting by the fireplace when there was a knock at the door, not a gentle knock, but desperate pounding from people running for their lives. A strange voice came from outside. It was not English, it was Apache. Tobias felt his blood turn cold. The last time he heard that language, his family was still alive, and the next morning they were gone. His hand reached for the rifle hanging on the wall. Old memories rushed back. His instincts warned him that danger was waiting just outside the door. But this time, something was different. Those voices carried no threat, only fear and desperate pleading. Please help us. They are coming. If we die here, you will die too. Tobias stood still in front of the door. 8 years hiding from the world, 8 years living in darkness. And with a single decision, everything was about to change. When the door closed behind them, Tobias could finally see the Apache women standing inside his house. They were dirty and soaked from the rain, and many of them were wounded. One young girl held a newborn baby tightly, the child shaking from the cold. But among them, there was one woman who stood straight, her eyes calm and unbroken. She stepped forward. "My name is Ayana. We have been running for 3 days," I said. Before Tobias could ask anything, she continued, as if there was no time to hesitate. The soldiers hunting them were not doing it because of war, but because of crime. The unit led by Captain Morrison had slaughtered their village, killed the men, captured the women, and done things that could not be spoken of. Some of them had fought back, some had escaped, and that was why they were now being hunted like animals. "If we stay alive, Morrison will be exposed," Ayana said, her voice shaking with anger. "That is why he must kill all of us." A chill ran down Tobias's spine. He had known soldiers like that before, men in uniform, but without honor. "How many are coming?" he asked. "About 8 to 10, and they will not stop." Outside, the storm was still howling, but the real danger was coming faster than the rain and the wind. Ayana's words made the room feel heavy. Tobias looked at the tired faces gathered around the fireplace. Women who were being hunted, wounds still bleeding, and a baby breathing weakly in its mother's arms. He understood exactly what it meant. If he handed them over, the soldiers would leave, and he could return to his lonely life. But these women would die. If he hid them, Tobias would become a traitor in the eyes of the U.S. Army. His ranch would turn into a battlefield, and very likely, he would die before the night was over. He turned to Ayana. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. Ayana shook her head. 8 years ago, the army came to this place. They said they just wanted to ask some questions. The next morning, I buried my wife and my child. The room fell into complete silence. "So," Tobias said slowly, "I have been their enemy for a long time already. Adding 10 more Apache women won't change a thing. Tenutu." He opened the latch to the cellar door beneath the floor. "You will stay. Anyone who comes into this place with the intent to kill will pay the price." Outside, the sound of horse hooves began to echo through the rain. "If you were Tobias, would you open the door and save them, or hand them over to survive? Comment save or abandon below. I want to know what you would choose." As soon as Tobias locked the door, he realized something was wrong. The Apache women were no longer standing there trembling like they had when they first entered. Their eyes grew sharp, their backs straightened. The air inside the house changed, as if a mask had just been taken off. Ayana stepped toward the wooden table. From beneath her torn dress, she pulled out a shining knife. The others did the same, pistols, blades, even arrowheads carefully hidden on their bodies. "We are not weak people running for our lives," Ayana said quietly but firmly. "We are survivors." Tobias froze. He understood that they had been preparing for this night for a long time. These women were not just escaping, they were waiting for the right moment. "Captain Morrison thinks he is hunting frightened girls," Ayana continued. "But he is wrong." One young woman carried the baby into the back room. 2 others took positions near the windows. One by one, they moved into place like warriors who had fought before. Tobias looked at them differently now. Have you ever killed anyone? He asked. Ayana met his eyes. Enough to know that men like Morrison never stop unless they are stopped. Outside, the sound of horse hooves was getting closer. The hunt was about to end. But not in the way the soldiers expected. Boots struck the wooden porch in the rain. Morrison's arrogant voice cut through the door. I know you're in there. Open the door, and I'll let you die quickly. Tobias stood behind the window, his rifle in his hands. Ayana and 3 other women were hidden in the shadows. The rest had disappeared into the back of the house, forming several layers of defense. Morrison kicked the door open. He stepped inside with his gun raised and froze. There were no crying women, no one begging to surrender. Only Tobias, aiming his rifle straight at Morrison's face. In that moment of hesitation, firelight flashed from the hearth. Ayana raised a small mirror, reflecting a signal they had agreed on. From every corner of the house, shadows surged forward, the sound of steel cutting into flesh, bodies hitting the wooden floor. Morrison's soldiers were taken down before they even understood what was happening. Morrison turned and Ayana was already behind him. This is for my sister, she whispered. The blade drove deep between his ribs. Morrison opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He collapsed into a pool of blood, killed by the very people he had once hunted as prey. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside that house, the hunt had been reversed. Less than a minute after Morrison fell, a new sound rose through the rain, the sound of horse hooves. Not 1 or 2, but a whole group charging forward. Torches flared in the night, revealing dozens of mounted soldiers surrounding the ranch. Morrison had only been the advance force. Ayana pulled her knife from his body, her face hardening. There are at least 15, maybe more. Tobias understood the situation immediately. They had killed a small snake, but now a dragon had appeared. He looked down into the valley below where an old dam blocked the rainwater flowing down from the mountains. In a storm like this, if the dam was destroyed, the entire valley would be flooded within minutes. If we blow the dam, Tobias said, all of them will be swept away. Ayana understood at once. But at that moment, a weak cry rose through the rain, not from the baby inside the house, but from somewhere inside the soldiers' camp. An innocent child was out there. If the dam broke, that child would die too. Tobias clenched his fist. Save the women and children inside the house, or kill one innocent child to destroy the enemy? For the first time that night, both Ayana and Tobias fell silent. Victory now came at a terrible price. Tobias could not ignore that cry. An innocent baby could not become the price of victory. He set the explosives down. We are not blowing up the dam, he said. I will go save the child. Ayana looked at him as if he were stepping into death itself. But Tobias had already made his decision. In the pouring rain, he crawled silently through the mud toward the soldiers' camp. Torchlight dimly revealed a wagon. Beside it, a young woman was holding a baby tightly, trying to silence its cries. When a guard noticed Tobias, he quickly copied a soldier's voice. Morrison ordered the civilians moved somewhere else. The hesitation lasted only a second, long enough for Tobias to swing the rifle butt and knock the guard unconscious. The young woman stared at him in shock. Please don't hurt my child. I'm here to save both of you, Tobias whispered. Run toward the forest, follow the stream, don't stop. She didn't ask anything else. Holding the baby, she disappeared into the rain. Then gunshots rang out from the house. Ayana had begun the diversion. Tobias knew he had just ignited a much larger battle, but at least one life had been saved. The gunfire suddenly stopped. A new voice cut through the rain, cold and full of authority. I am Colonel Bradley. You are surrounded. Torches appeared all across the land. This was no longer a small group of soldiers, but an entire company. The fragile hope that had just appeared was instantly crushed. Then a shout came from inside the house. Tobias, we caught his son. Tobias spun around. Ayana stood in the middle of the room, a knife pressed tightly against the throat of a young officer in uniform. He was very young, his eyes had not yet grown used to war. But that face, it looked exactly like Colonel Bradley. His son, Ayana said softly. He wandered around to the back on his own. Outside, the confidence in Bradley's voice vanished. Let the boy go, we can talk. Ayana did not step back. Your army killed our families. Tonight, you will pay for it. This Tracians of the ration the minded. Tobias looked at the terrified face of the young officer. A hostage, but also a human being. And perhaps, the only key to bringing down an entire empire of crime. Outside the house, Colonel Bradley shouted, trying to force them to release his son. But Tobias no longer trusted a single word from men who wore uniforms while their hearts had rotted inside. He turned to the young lieutenant being held by Ayanna. "Do you know what Morrison did to the Apache villages?" Tobias asked. The young man trembled. "My father said they were enemies, bandits." Ayanna pressed the blade closer. "We farmed corn. We raised our children. We lived in peace. Until your soldiers burned my village." The truth struck the young officer like a hammer. He began to understand that he had been serving a crime hidden behind the name of the army. At that moment, new torches appeared in the distance, torches without Bradley's insignia. They belonged to a federal investigative force. Colonel Bradley realized it too late. He had been under surveillance. The young lieutenant looked at his father, now surrounded. "If I tell the truth, will it all end?" he asked. Tobias nodded. "You can't fix the past, but you can stop it from continuing." After a moment of struggle, the young man nodded, and with one testimony, an entire empire built on blood and lies began to collapse. When the sun rose after a night soaked in blood, everything had changed. Colonel Bradley was led away in handcuffs, his career and power collapsing under the weight of the truth. The crimes committed against the Apache people were finally exposed. Ayanna and the surviving women were placed under government protection and received compensation. They had lost their families and their homeland, but at least they had finally gained justice. Tobias stood in the ruins of his house, a place that had been his shelter for 8 years. That night, he had lost his refuge, but he had found himself again. Ayanna prepared to leave with what remained of her tribe. Before she went, she looked at Tobias. "You gave us a chance to live." Tobias shook his head. "You reminded me that I am still human." He decided to escort Mary and the baby to a safe place, and then continue heading west, not to run away, but to begin again. In the light of dawn, people who had once been hunted now walked freely. Sometimes, to survive, we must fight, but to truly live, we must dare to choose what is right. If you were Tobias, would you choose to keep living alone, or step back into the world to protect the weak? Comment Aloni or stand up below. What would you choose?